Drive-thru workers of Reddit. What's the strangest thing you've seen in a customer's car? Guy had his parrot on his shoulder. It tried to bite me when I handed him his change. If the bird's name was Jack and had laser eyes, I know the guy. I worked at a Taco Bell back in high school and this obviously very rich guy came by weekly in his convertible, Hawaiian shirt, and a blow-up doll in the passenger seat. One time he had the usual passenger seat 1 and 2 in the back, and I asked him what the occasion was. He said, 4th of July. Duh. It was May? Mayo, what was he on? He ordered 10 bags of ice from us, and he had what looked like 30-40 more bags of ice in his van. I had to do this once because the dum-dum wedding planner forgot to order ice for a 500-person event and the bulk ice place told her to frick off because it was too short notice. Wiped out multiple gas stations and a couple MCDs before I had enough. One lady came through the McDonald's drive-thru and instead of a golden retriever or lab poking its head up from the backseat of the minivan, there was a pony just chilling, munching on carrots or something. It was a bright spot in my day XD. People use those miniature horses as therapy service animals, like a seeing eye dog or dogs for veterans and others with PTSD. I think it would be cool but there would be so much poop. I saw Joey on his way to the zoo. The Caracas had to stop for a caramel macchiato first. Everybody's got a baby kangaroo. Yours is pink but mine is blue. Had a guy come through Tim Hortons in the morning. Go to give him his coffee and he asks me to wait a second. Grabs the beer from his cup holder and chugs the rest of it. Throws it out the open passenger window. Takes coffee from my hand. Says thank you and drives away. I worked at a McDonald's last year. We had a regular drive-thru customer who was odd. He had a huge beard and was always wearing a Hawaiian button-up shirt, and always had a fake skeleton wearing a hat in his passenger seat. I still don't have any ideas as to why. He wanted to get into a carpool lane. When I was working at DQ in high school I remember a woman coming through the drive-thru with a shotgun sitting in the passenger seat. Riding shotgun if you will. She had 3 teardrop tattoos. Naturally we made sure her order was correct. You better not skimp on those peanut butter cups in my blizzard. More sad than strange, but a lot of people drinking alcohol while driving. So many young kids without car seats or seat belts. Lots of pot smokers. And I had one naked guy. Think more getting off by exposing himself to 16-year-old girls at the drive-thru than a funny prank bro. Worked third shift at a 24-hour McDonald's. I saw a bit of everything. Most confusing thing I saw was a car filled with people in gorilla suits, most of whom were passed out in the back seat, and had been hotboxing as well. Overall a very confusing scene. A guy nonchalantly ordered a slice of cheese pizza while his hands were covered in blood a few days ago. He didn't acknowledge it at all. I gave him some extra napkins. He just finished a murder, and to be fair, murdering can make you hungry for some pizza. I used to work in Burger King a few years ago. Had a taxi pull up one night and instead of the usual, it pulls forward to let the passenger grab their order. Window rolls down and there's some chick giving a guy head in the back seat. She casually sits up, wipes God knows what off her face and pays the cash. Strangest part was that the driver wasn't bothered by any of it. 'Tis the life of a taxi man. Someone with their dong hanging out. Also someone in the passenger's seat eating a full turkey dinner on fine china. I was once working a graveyard shift and this car comes through the drive-thru. I take the order and wait for the car pull up. When it finally does I see 2 ladies in the front seat. The driver was fingering the passenger and they were both making full eye contact with me. It was too awkward. They maintained eye contact. Dominance was properly asserted. Was working drive-thru at Hoodie's as my first job. It's about 10 PM on a Friday night and someone comes into the drive-thru. They order a strawberry malt. As part of my scripting I ask if they want to add 2 apple turnovers for $99. They gleefully agree. Cool, your total is $3.14. Pull to the next window. And they didn't. They were laughing. And there was lots of noise. And the noise continued and there was more laughing. Tentatively, I poked my head out of the window and saw 6 high school kids carrying a sofa. They hauled the sofa to the window and asked for me to dump the milkshake all over the sofa. Whatever. They paid for it so I enjoyed it. When I gave them the pies, they proceeded to smash them and smear them all over the sofa. Then they carried it to the parking lot and loaded it onto a truck and drove away. I had a man come through drive-thru, dressed in a wedding gown. He had a ratty old piece of cardboard with "Call me sissy, I'm a sissy" written on it. He held it up for us to read while he spoke to us, and said what sign when we asked him what the sign was for. Once he finished paying and got his order, he parked right in front of the drive-thru window and stood there with his sign, then proceeded to flash us his lace underwear. Fun times. I'm 99% sure his mistress ordered him to do that. I'm also 70% sure he was paying his mistress to order him to do that. I wasn't working, but my friend and I were heading home after a concert and decided to stop through McDonald's for some keep-me-up food. It was like 1 in the morning. We were confused because we had been waiting to pull up to the window for a solid 5 minutes, even though there were only 2 cars ahead of us. We watched the car directly ahead of us maneuver around the car in front of them to pull into one of the special spaces reserved for drive-thru customers waiting for food. At this point, like 2 or 3 workers came out to figure out what was going on. My friend and I had just assumed the guy was super drunk, tired and passed out at the wheel or something. I mean, it was 1 in the morning. A few days later, I saw a news article about a guy who had had a heart attack and died at the wheel at a McDonald's drive-thru. Guess which one it was? It's horrifying that a quick Google search turned up 6 different deaths in similar circumstances. Many years ago I worked at Taco Casa and a woman came through in a brand new convertible butt naked drunk with her leg propped out the window. She took her food, then went to back in a parking spot to eat and ended up backing into a light pole, completely crushing the back of her car. She put it in park and ate her tacos until the police came. The taco sauce there is nectar. I worked at Taco Bell a while back. The most memorable, strangest thing I saw come though the drive-thru was an elderly man, probably late 50s, early 60s. He had a large, loaded glass bong buckled in the passenger seat. Told him it smelled good in there and he responded, "It always smells good where I am." What a badass. I'll never forget that. Till 50s is considered elderly. I worked retail pharmacy, and I had the drive-thru window. This woman rolls up in a beat-up Lincoln from the 80s, IDK the actual make, forgive me, and has to force the gear stick into park. To paint you a picture, this woman was so incredibly obese that her stomach rested atop the steering wheel, squeezed underneath the steering wheel, and poked through the spaces in the steering wheel. And, for my fellow drive-thru PhDs, you know how this demographic tends to be, rude and always rushing. So, I see she's trying to find her prescription, and as I'm saying hi, welcome to, she goes, daughter's name, where in God's name is my dang prescription? And I hear a little girl's voice that timidly saying, "Mommy, I think you," and then the woman says aha and pulls the prescription out of her bra. So, gingerly I opened the transfer drawer to get the RX from her, and of course she parked too far from the receiving window, so she's struggling to reach, and what do you freaking know? The wind catches her RX and blows it across the parking lot. This horrible troll of a woman starts cursing God and yelling at her daughter, "What are you waiting for? Go get it." And I kid you freaking not, I hear the passenger door open. Still couldn't see this kid past the mom's profile. And this girl stands out of the car and hobbles over and opens the back door. At first I was like, WTF, why is she hobbling like a pirate? And lo and behold, this little girl reaches underneath the seat and pulls out a prosthetic leg and puts it on and proceeds to clomp down the parking lot to chase the prescription. And that's one of the weirdest things I've seen working the drive-thru window. TLDR. Fat mama ate her kid's leg. Probably. Poor kid. A half-dressed, but very lively, H. She was giggling like a lunatic until she realized where she actually was. It turned out that this particular lady of the evening had just started working part-time at the restaurant whose drive-thru window I was manning. She'd called in earlier in the day, and I was the one who replaced her. I wish I'd have had a camera. Not a drive-thru worker, used to be warehouse at a retailer. Sometimes warehouse would help people load stuff in their car. I've seen so many handguns and rifles he had to scoop them up and throw them in a pile in the back by the armful to make room for his new TV. A slow cooker hooked up to a power adapter plugged into the cigarette lighter with a whole chicken and some potatoes in it. 7 kids, including 2 sets of identical twins, all sitting and silently staring at me load a TV mount. Those suckers are heavy, into the back of a huge minivan. 2 dogs that had entirely covered the floor of a cab covered truck with crap and pee. I was like, and the guy just hoisted and asked me to help him push the box his new TV was in through the muck. Alternatively, drive-through workers. How obvious is it that people just finished smoking dope on the drive up there? Super obvious, and it's annoying when people take forever to order food. Yes, finally applies to me. I once saw a strange hooded dude pull up refusing to make direct eye contact. I looked in his backseat and I see a few rounds, loaded mags and an AK-47 partially covered up by a sheet. McDonald's gave me stories. Not a drive-through worker, but I once had to have to reverse through the drive-through to get my food. I was driving a right-hand drive Honda. Got a lot of strange looks for that. A group of us did that in college once because their left side window was busted. That was fun. Trash packed so high you couldn't see out the back window or through the passenger window. Disgusting. Don't miss that job at all. McDonald's employee here watched someone watch pee while waiting for her food. I gave her the food and she just put a hand down her pants and left. Former Starbucks employee here. The strangest thing I ever encountered was this guy, probably 25-30, with one of those real dolls in the passenger seat and a bunch of stuffed animals in the back seat. Teddy bears buckled in. The guy looked perfectly normal otherwise and we never acknowledged it. Could have been a dare or something. Hey bro, I dare you to spend $5k on a real doll and drive it through drive-thrus. Haha, classic prank. The most shocking thing I've seen was a woman herself. I remember her quite well because it almost seemed too weird to be true. I am working the window to hand out the food and the customer pulls up. Food isn't ready yet, but I glanced at her and she was wearing a blue dress with a fancy looking sun hat and sunglasses. She kinda looks attractive but fairly older. So teenager me is like, awesome, I get to see a hottie. Well, food finally comes up and I open the window to hand her the food and she turns her head to look at me. I freeze. The right side of her face has the biggest tumors or growth or whatever on her face I have ever seen. And her right arm also has some. They are big and purple and red and looks really swollen. I couldn't move. I just stood there with my arm stretched and she took the food out of my hand and drove off. I still feel really bad to this day that I didn't handle it better and I really hope she is okay. To be fair, arms stretched out with my food is all I ask of drive-through employees. Okay, I kid you not. When I was at the McDonald's drive-through, there was a man there with 2 kids in the back of his car, and he asked if he could buy one of the huge vending machines for soda because he needed an infinite supply of soda. Apparently he thought that those vending machines created the soda themselves without anyone needing to refill them. This guy was like 35 years old too, and he didn't leave until security was forced to come and kick the guy out of the drive-through. He wasted 20 minutes trying to negotiate the price of a vending machine. Logged in just to tell this story. I'm a supervisor at KFC and one day this couple came through, ordered, and went to the pickup window to wait. While I was bagging up their meal I looked out and saw the driver start finger bashing the female passenger. I'm talking legs on the dashboard, seat reclined back, full blown moaning fingering. When I went to hand out their meal the guy didn't even flinch. He was like, yep thanks, and off they went. It's still finger licking good. Not really strange, but I worked at my local Chick-fil-A and had 2 notable celebrity encounters. Josh Peck, Josh from Drake and Josh. He was super nice even though I accidentally called him Josh Hutcherson in my excitement. It's funny because they both starred in Red Dawn together. He got Dr. Pepper, Selena Gomez. She was a bit rude and seemed to be in a hurry. She was very snappy and sped right off. I forgot what car she was driving. Once a guy handed us a chihuahua puppy through the window, said something ominous about getting rid of it if we didn't want it. Luckily, the supervisor at the time was cool about it. Little guy hung out in a fry box for a while, the supervisor's younger brother ending up adopting it. I had a dude walk up to my truck once and shove a kitten through the window before walking off, so apparently forcing baby animals on people through windows is a thing. I work at a quick lube. One day I guided a customer into the bay. He stopped, picked up a 1.75L bottle of vodka, took a few huge gulps, Ad got out of the car and greeted me as if I wasn't just watching him. Car parked up in corner, me being the good employee I am, I go to hand him with a smile. Found him casually looking at P on his phone, longest 10 seconds waiting for him to realize I was at his car. About 1 AM, I'm working the third shift. Dude passes TF out in his truck for 40 minutes. Everybody in line behind him was honking, knocking on his windows. We thought he was dead. Had to call the cops and they broke into his truck and hauled him in under suspicion of drug use. Lots of hot boxes. Open the window and get a face full of smoke. I was offered a lot of joints. Many hoarders. People using their cars as storage sheds, dumpsters. Dude with a fully dressed up dummy in his passenger seat. Mumbled something about carpool lanes. Alrighty, I think we had a bar or club nearby that did drag shows or something like that because we got a lot of drag queens. They were great customers. A nice break between all the wasted, rude people, goddamn people in those horse masks, all the time, and many people not wearing pants, or underwear, or shirts. I get it, it's late, but at least put on a towel, or a snuggie, or a freaking sock. Great times on the third shift. You meet a lot of interesting people after 10 PM. Finally one I can answer. I work at an Arby's in the M-head capital of Tennessee and I have seen a guy in the passenger seat shoot up with some drug, probably M or opiates, while the driver was paying. You have been visited by the Source Chihuahua. You will be blessed with good pasta, but only if you comment simmer well. Papa simmer well, Papa. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.